Welcome to Testimony Cafe. Grab a cup of coffee or some tea and sit back and listen to a powerful testimony. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please follow and share. We love you guys.
Hi, my name is Murray Sumner. This is my wife, Kay. We've had the pleasure of being married just over 43 years, with a friendship beyond that of a good 10 years. And so our Christian walk has been long and varied. We both probably committed ourselves fully to the Lord back in the 70s. And I know for some of you that's the dark ages, but the Lord has been active and in our life constantly. He's, as the Bible says, I will never leave you or forsake you. And that's probably one of the greatest attributes of our life is that as we have stepped into our Christian walk, our the strength of the Lord has gotten better in our life. We've gotten more committed to Him. We've seen miracles. We were even discussing last week, hey, you know what? We have so many things that the Lord has done for us. Why don't we start writing these things down before we forget? And as you can see, we're getting on in years, and we may just do that. But anyway, the purpose of our talk with you today is to ask to really document what God has done in our life through the unfortunate taking of our son's life back in 2016. We woke up in November of 2016 to the call that no parent ever wants to get, and that is that your son was found dead of an overdose. And our son was 43 years old. He lived in New York. He was a professional jazz musician. He did what he would love to do, the talent that God put him into, which was playing jazz. And he just loved it. He lived for it ever since he was just a young boy and dragged a saxophone home from high school that he didn't have enough wind to play. But we encouraged him and really invested in him and his talents. And he became very, very prominent in a New York jazz scene. And unfortunately, one of his peers introduced him to drugs, and peer pressure, of course, got a hold of him. And he said, "Well, you know, we're all doing this. Why don't you try this? It'll make you play better." Well, he did try it, and maybe it did make him play better, but it certainly led to his demise. And I'll hand it over to my wife to really give you a little more detail.
Josh was a really interesting person when he was about, I would say, just about 4, between 3 and 4. I heard him talk to his sister, who was about 5.5, and he said, Jesus is real. And she said, "What do you mean? How do you know that?" And he said he was in bed. We were at a cottage, and everybody went down to the lake, but we put him to sleep, and we weren't far away, but we weren't in the house, so to speak, and he was supposed to be asleep. He woke up and he was startled that there was no one there, and so he was scared. And Jesus appeared to him and told him he was safe. And his sister said, "How do you know it was Jesus? Maybe it was a ghost. And maybe it was your grandfather." And he said, "No, he wasn't dead yet." So it was a very interesting conversation I overheard. But Josh always seemed he'd ask me when Jesus was coming back. It's still very small, young. And I'd have to say, I really can't answer that, Josh. But he had a deep kindness, one that we brought, Murray and I brought him down to this street in Toronto where people kind of walk around and hang out on Friday, Saturday night. And he played saxophone, and Murray sat next to him. And one guy, this is the 70s, and someone gave him $20. They were giving him a lot of money, and he was all of 12 or 13. By the time we got to the car, he'd given it all away because he just had so much kindness towards other people. So he'd see somebody homeless or struggling, he'd just give his money away. At the airport one time, we'd given him money to take this flight. And by the time we got on the plane, he'd given his money away. So he's not someone we expected to get into this. Matter of fact, we didn't have a clue that he would get into drugs at all, because he really was a good kid. I don't remember him ever having a run-in with the police or anybody complaining about him. You could take it from there. A good kid.
Yeah, obviously it was a shock, and as it is for any parent or any family member to get the news that their loved one has died. And often we've ministered to a lot of people, because we're almost we're in the ninth year now since Josh has passed, and so we've run into a lot of people, and particularly because of a documentary that we've done, and we'll talk about just a little bit, who are grieving and still grieving after many years, and so what we
You don't
want.
stop grieving. You never stopped grieving.
You never stop grieving, but everybody who has gone through grief knows that there's stages of it, and anger, and I forget what the four stages are, but um, we're not promoting this book, but this is a book that we actually have a box of them in our office, and we give them to people because this is an encouraging book about heaven, and it gives hope to people, parents, loved ones, peers who wonder whether their child is going to be with them when they get to heaven. And in our case, our son never really committed his life to Jesus, but I I'm going to ask my wife to share some of the dreams that she's had about that.
Before before Josh died for a couple of years, I kept having these strange dreams about him, like he was a little baby and it was on a pile of junk. And now I think about it, junk is a name for heroin, and that's what he was on. And I kept trying to rescue him in these dreams, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't reach him. But it was a warning. And then finally, a friend told us that Josh was doing heroin. And frankly, we were shocked. We were totally surprised. It didn't even seem possible. Here's a nice, sensitive, caring person. He's not out partying. He's working hard to make a living. He's got like 2 or 3 jobs. He's just very kind, not a bad kid, not hanging out with the wrong crowd. Well, maybe jazz musicians are the wrong crowd, but he's not hanging out in a party scene. Or matter of fact, I think that's one of the most important things I've learned through this process, is that it isn't necessarily bad kids or kids with bad parents or kids in bad neighborhoods that get addicted. Oftentimes it's someone who's sensitive and they feel things more deeply. So that feeling deeply can be painful, and heroin is a way to cure it. And unfortunately, around the jazz musicians, they felt like they could play better, like Charlie Parker with taking drugs. Matter of fact, he did get off. He got on Suboxone, and he was on it for about 2 years, and then he made a commitment to get off, and he started taking a smaller dose each day. And the last time I saw him, when he came to visit us about a month before he overdosed, he woke me up and knocked on the door in the morning. He said, "Mom, I'm totally off of it." And he told me it was hell to get off of it. He couldn't control his legs kicking. That's, I guess, what they call kicking the habit. He couldn't control how sick he got, but he just did it gradually and gradually until he was totally off. Then, unfortunately, no sooner did he get back to New York. Because we lived in LA, and we'd bring him in every year. Often we'd go to New York once or twice to see him. Josh was born on my birthday, so we often would go on his birthday and my birthday.
I think probably the viewers of this podcast are primarily Christian, so I want to speak about uh, what the Bible clearly says, and that is that we have an enemy. We have an enemy that prowls about like a roaring lion, ready to destroy us. And the enemy's job is, and his whole motive is to rob, kill, and destroy. And one of the first stages one goes through when they lose a loved one is to pretty much put the Bible on the shelf and not really go deeper, but to really go inward and go, why does this happen to me? What could I have done better? The shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And if I'd only been a better parent, if I'd only been more aware, or if I'd only, listen to this, listen to that. And what I want to say to you, if you're a victim of this, is don't be a victim. Be a recovering person who has the light of Christ to look forward to. Because the light at the end of the tunnel is brighter than the dark tunnel that you're possibly in right now. And it's not a freight train that's coming towards you. The light of Jesus is the only way to really um, overcome this. Have him walk alongside of you, hold his hand, go to church, get into some kind of a home group where you have supporters. We personally know a very committed Christian couple who had so much shame. Not only did they lose one of their children, but they lost a second one. And they just retreated and they went into a place where they were so shameful because they thought it was their fault. And let that not be you, because this isn't something that you are responsible for. You might have set up a situation that might have enabled it. However, we're currently in a situation where the drugs that are out there, all it takes is less than a couple of grains of salt of fentanyl on the end of a pencil. That's how powerful this stuff is. And it's a rather unique situation in that once an addict becomes addicted, which is very, very quickly, and sometimes one instance, it's very difficult to shake, but it's also a euphoria and a high that one never can reach again. And so they're constantly, as addicts will tell you, we're chasing the high, but they never get there. And unfortunately, they're actually pursuing the very thing that will kill them. It's literally a case of Russian roulette. And we've heard of instances where there are parties where there's a designated Narcan individual, somebody who's there to have Narcan, which is the reversal material that will bring a person who is overdosing on certain drugs, not all of them, to literally bring them back to life. And we've heard instances of some individuals who've been brought back 9, 10 times.
And the reason we've heard these stories is because after I've been a producer, and Murray's been a producer for many years, and I got mad. Like, first of all, I don't understand. Why would anybody purposely make themselves tied to this drug? The expense, the time, the control it had over them, it just made no sense to me at all. I've never wanted to do drugs. And I got mad. I said, okay, I want to understand how someone like Josh could get here. And I want to find out. And so we decided we'd make a film. And it started off with, let's understand this. And we interviewed about, I don't know, between 20 and 50 people, asking them the question, how did you get the drug? These were all people that had come out of it. At the time, they had said, I'm over it. I was a drug addict, or I was struggling, but I'm pretty much out of the thing. So that we asked them, how did this happen to you? And some was accidental. It's just somebody said, try this, and they did, and they thought, oh, wow, this is great. Other ones were very depressed and wanted to try it. Other one were just at a party and somebody, So the reasons people tried it were pretty innocent, pretty innocuous, pretty not well thought out. And then we asked them, well, where did it take you? And the stories were amazing. The most normal seeming person had committed murder all around these drugs of these people. Then we asked them, well, what turned it around? And many told us that it was Jesus. They called on Jesus and they asked for help. So we followed these stories, these people. And that kind of came out of a dream I had. I had a dream that I saw Josh. And I kept asking him, where are you living? And he kept saying, over there, in a nice apartment. Up, and he was pointing up. I didn't know where that was. But Murray and I had come into a bar where people were watching the TV. And it seemed like really bad things were happening in the world. And the town itself, the stores had been looted. Things were really ripped apart. And I asked them for black thread. And the only reason I think I asked for black thread, but it's a dream. So it was because it was the threads of people's life. And they were black because a lot of these people have been through this tragic situation. And those threads to me became the stories of asking people, what did you like? What is the thread? What brought you here? Meanwhile, Josh was there with me and he was happy, and he wanted Murray and I to be safe. So we're going to this broken downtown. It was a decent sized town, like Ann Arbor, Michigan, or it's maybe 100,000 to 20 to 100,000 people there. There was, substantial bank buildings, but everything was broken. And so it was a matter of us finding a place to sleep in a broken down building, I guess. Anyhow, the good news was he was with us and he was worried about us. And I think he encouraged us to make this movie. So making the movie about people's life was, first of all, to educate us and also to educate other people, because we were totally naive to this. And most parents are. You have a happy kid that seems to be doing well. And then you find out they're doing drugs, and it's like a total shock. One of the girls had been hurt playing baseball, and she had surgery. And the drugs from the surgery became so addictive. And then she went on to heroin. And we tell her story. But many people came for different reasons, a car accident, many innocuous situations that transformed their life into being hooked and not able to get off of it. Okay.
Yes, most people when this happens to them just go into, as I said before, a grieving situation. We wanted to take our grief and use the God-given talents that God has given us through our extensive film and television careers to create something that would be a story that people would be able to understand what this is, how it affects people, and how it entraps them, and how the enemy works within it to keep them in chains, in bondage to just this terrible thing that eventually ultimately can and does take their life if they're not careful. And the title of the movie is Survivors. We have, I think now 30 different film festival awards on this film. We have a nonprofit, and we'll provide all the links to this stuff and how you can see this movie. But it is available on Amazon, on Tubi, a couple of other platforms. But it's about an hour, and it just walks you through what people are going through with this situation. And the government can put all its resources towards it, but this is not going away anytime soon. And the enemy is not going away anytime soon. So this is the devil's playground, and unfortunately, it's one of the tools he's now using in that plus social media to just entrap our youth to put them into a captivity that they sometimes just cannot get out of. So the name of the movie is Survivors. The I guess it's also on YouTube, right? Okay,
Yeah,
you can find it on YouTube. Our
Tubi.
website,
Tubi, it's the best one.
uh, yeah, our website is notonemoretime.com, and that's our nonprofit. You can also follow Instagram. We're at Not One More Time Nonprofit, and we just decided that we were going to do this to glorify God and to tell people stories. These are real life stories. These are not your stereotypical person who's under the bridge, who we all think of as a drug addict, and they're locked in this lifestyle and they'll die in it. No, our story is about people that are normally functioning people one day, and then they're not so much functioning. And so,
Back to the film for a
yeah,
minute. The film stories, really, the ones we chose were the most complete ones. They had a beginning, middle, and end. But how tragic what these people went through. And I really asked a counselor, a drug counselor, what could we do different as families? What could we do different? He said the main thing that we could do differently is so simple. He said, have family dinners. Make sure you are with your kids, talking to your kids. He said, so often now, mom and dad work, they pick up something on the way home for dinner. People eat in every corner, somebody eats in front of their computer, there's not that cohesiveness in the family where it's a safe place or relatively safe place to express your opinion and to let people know what's going on in your life. So he said, get to the family dinners, get there where you share your stories and share your hopes.
and have those conversations with your children too, and with your loved ones. If you think there's anything that is not normal, that they're all of a sudden not normal anymore, that's a good indication that there is something going on there. I would say challenge them, get them into a conversation, not in a judgment way, but in a loving way. Using the love of God to draw them out and to be able to just say, hey, you know, are are your friends doing this, or is there anything at school going on, or anything at work that might be, in.
But it can be the simplest thing. There's a little 7-year-old girl who died here because she ate a candy that had fentanyl in it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to teach the kids not to take anything from people. And here we're coming closer to Halloween. We don't really know what's out there.
Yeah.
So I think it takes a greater awareness of where our children are at. And that's hard because they'll lie to you. They're like, hey, mom, I'm doing drugs. No, that's pretty rare. So it's keeping them close as you can and talking to you. And it took our son was doing drugs 5 years before we knew. And the interesting part is they always seemed really happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we spoke to a drug addict. He said, yeah, we're happy when we're high.
Mm-hmm.
We're not so happy when we're not
And they don't
high.
return your phone calls when they're not.
Yeah. So having them seem well and happy is not necessarily a good sign. And the other thing, it really occurs to me is if you're in a position where you have lost someone, don't stay there, get angry, and go through it. See what you can do.
Find a support group.
And
Every church should have a support group, and if they don't, then find one that does.
in AA, of course, is really good.
Hmm.
But to push past it, push past your own hurt and say, yeah, okay, people are going to condemn me. Well, they've condemned me before for saying something stupid. I can survive that, but I really need, as an individual, to push past it and look at it as it is, not the way I want it to be. We don't have perfect families. No one has a perfect family. No one has a perfect life. We're all sinners. So we have to fight, fight for our children, fight for our marriages, fight for our
Hmm.
own lives, fight for our own um, relationship with God, just not to take it. I think one of the hardest things is I was getting up, I was praying so much for Josh, and I had other people praying for him. And when he got off the drugs, I thought, oh, good, he's over it. I'm thinking like measles. It's been bad, but now he's over it and we're through. That's what I thought. And I quit praying for him. And when I quit praying for him, that's when he overdosed. So, but because I prayed for him, I was really kind of, I can't say mad at God because it's an, how can you be mad at God? He's created everything, good and beautiful world. I can't be mad at him, but I was disappointed. And for a long time, I didn't want to pray because I'd been up at 3 o'clock in the morning praying for an hour or more just to get him off that. And he did get off it. But there came a day when he said, I'm so proud of myself because I did it myself. I didn't lean on anybody for help. I didn't go to a therapist, whatever. And I'm thinking, oh boy, he's in trouble because he needs God. We all need a relationship with Jesus. We do. And if we think not, it's not going to work out well.
Just a quick note on what what the process normally is in once a person is addicted and wants to recover, or their family wants to put them into recovery. Well, we found it very difficult to a couple of individuals that were ministering to actually get them support because the recovery processes that are normally available to them, such as rehabs, and we're in California and they're all around here. It's like the rehab capital of the world here. They're all pretty much motivated by insurance money. And if you don't have insurance, then you don't step in the door. And so the next step is the hospital, the medical system, because they have to get clean before they can even begin recovery. And the hospitals won't take them either unless you go to a public hospital. And then it's very difficult getting care there. So it, the process is kind of like a squirrel cage, and once they're in it, as long as you've got money, you're fine. But the reality is that about, I think, 70% of the recovery facilities, all they do is they get you clean, they put you back on the street, only to have you come back a week or two later or go to another facilities. I mean, many people that we spoke to had been through rehab numerous times. And it's kind of like the old expression of, well, I can quit smoking. I've done it 1,000 times. Well, it's kind of like drugs too, that way in drugs. But there are processes out there. There are more and more recovery places that are nonprofit, and I think through your church you might be able to get connected to those. But that the loss is never going to go away to those people who have lost a loved one. That is a hole you cannot fill. It's just however, you can rest in the love of Jesus, who wraps his arms around us and comforts us in those very big dark times, and just choose to go forward, not dwell in the past, and get help, get get people around you who love you and can speak into your life, and get a good church. If you're not happy with a church, you're going to find another one because there are loving and wonderful churches out there. So that's my encouragement for you. So no shame. Do not take this upon yourselves as shame. And if you know somebody who is needs some kind of recovery, reach out to them. Reach out to them because they truly are lost. They're lost in the system and they're lost to a an addiction that they probably cannot recover from themselves, and they are going to need help. And it's a long-term process. And we're all born with a God-shaped hole in our heart, and everyone is trying to fill that. And unfortunately, those who really do not have a good relationship with their Savior are trying to fill it with other means. And so that's what we want to leave you with is encouragement and um, do check out our movie. It's a very interesting walk through this whole process, and hopefully you'll be encouraged at the end of it.
Amen.
And thank you for hanging in here and listening to us.
Amen. Amen. Thank you guys so much. So many parts of that